Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a massive failure in the supply chain, one that costs emerging economies a fortune.
And more importantly, how a really novel service model is starting to solve it.
Exactly. Today, our mission is to analyze the high-yield investment potential in what's being called the micro cold chain. We're going to look at the shift from just selling hardware to selling logistics and data, specifically in Nepal's agrotech sector.
Yeah.
So let's start with the core problem. It's just staggering waste. In Nepal's agricultural heartlands, you've got this structural failure of logistics after the harvest.
Right.
We're talking something like 30 to 40% loss of high-value produce. Think ginger, apples, tomatoes. This isn't a problem of farmers not growing enough. It's a failure to get it to market.
It's a delivery failure, pure and simple. You can imagine a farmer in a place like Dayan spends months growing beautiful tomatoes and then watches them rot because the timing is off. He just can't get them to market fast enough.
And for decades, the answer was always build bigger, right?
Exactly. That was the legacy solution. Huge, multi-core cold storage facilities, usually built near big cities like Kathmandu. But that whole model, it just fundamentally misunderstood who the end user was.
So it wasn't built for the smallholder farmer?
Not at all. It was completely inaccessible. It meant a farmer, who's already strapped for cash, had to figure out how to transport his goods hundreds of kilometers.
Over bad roads, I imagine.
Over terrible roads, and then pay these big fees up front. I mean, it was a great solution if you were a massive exporting company. But for a farmer in, say, Jumla with 500 kilos of apples, it was useless. Too far, too complex, too expensive.
Which brings us to the pivot. The market is moving away from that huge centralized model.
And moving toward this idea of a micro cold chain that's delivered as a service. Cold chain as a service, or CCaaS.
Okay, so this whole deep dive is really about unpacking the economics of that CCaaS model. It's not about selling fridges. It's about selling what time? Market access.
It's about selling both.
Yeah.
On-demand, flexible market access. That's the key.
All right, let's get into the mechanics of it because the adoption really hinges on who carries the financial weight. We need to talk about CapEx versus OpEx.
This is the absolute core of the investment opportunity. So from a farmer's point of view, CapEx, capital expenditure, that's a huge one-time payment.
Like buying the cold room yourself.
Right. A 10 metric ton cold room could set you back NPR 2.5 million. For a farmer whose income is seasonal, totally unpredictable. That's just a ruinous mismatch.
And I'd guess that fixed asset quickly becomes a liability.
It almost always does. The farmer takes on a huge loan, and that cold store just sits there, chewing up electricity, needing maintenance, even when it's only really being used for a few months a year at peak harvest.
So it sits empty most of the time.
That's why so many of these government-subsidized cold stores you see are just defunct. They're liabilities in what should be a really fluid industry.
And the CCaaS model gets around this with OpEx, operational expenditure.
Correct. OpEx is just a pay-as-you-go cost. It's, say, paying NPR 70 per crate to store your tomatoes for 2 days. The whole model flips because an independent operator, not the farmer, is the one making that huge CapEx investment.
And these micro units are different from the big city warehouses, not just in size.
Oh, completely. They're modular, they're portable, and this is critical. They're often solar-powered. We're talking small 2 to 5 metric ton units.
And they're placed right where the crops are grown.
Exactly, right there at the Ginger Cooperative in Salyan. So the farmer deals with it purely on an OpEx basis. It turns cold storage from this terrifying debt into an on-demand utility. It's like topping up your mobile phone.
That's a great analogy. It just completely removes that financial barrier to entry.
It obliterates it.
Okay, so pay-as-you-go solves the access problem. But does it actually make financial sense for the farmer? I mean, the whole investment case here has to be about the unit economics. You have to see a crate of apples not just as fruit, but as a financial asset.
It's a time-sensitive financial instrument. And this is basically an arbitrage play on the time value of that produce.
A textbook case of how infrastructure creates pricing power.
Exactly. Let's walk through the Jumla apple scenario. It's a great example. You have a farmer, he's got 500 kilograms of apples. That's about 25 crates.
Okay, so scenario A, no cold chain. He has to sell immediately.
Right, and so does everyone else.
Right.
The local market is flooded. It's a race to the bottom, distress selling.
So he's forced to take whatever price he can get.
Let's say he gets NPR 80 per kilogram.
Yeah.
His total revenue is NPR 40,000. He's selling out of desperation, basically.
Now, scenario B. He uses the CCaaS unit that's right there at his co-op.
He decides to store those 25 crates for 5 days. He knows prices will stabilize in a few days. The cost is maybe NPR 50 per crate per day.
Okay, so what's his total outlay?
For 5 days, 25 crates. That's a total storage cost of NPR 6,250.
But by waiting, he can now sell those apples, which are chilled and in better condition, for a premium, maybe NPR 120 a kilo.
Precisely. His new total revenue is NPR 60,000. So you do the math. After you subtract that storage fee, his net gain, compared to the first scenario, is NPR 13,750.
Wow. That's a 34% jump in his net income.
A 34% increase, just
Uh,
by controlling the timing. That NPR 6,250 wasn't a cost. It was an investment with a direct, massive return.
and from the operator side, that NPR 6,250 is their revenue. So their whole game is about utilization, getting as many farmers as possible to use the unit.
Absolutely. High utilization is key to paying down their asset costs quickly, and that's why solar power is so important.
Right, because the national grid is unreliable.
Especially in remote areas.
Right.
Solar stabilizes the operator's own costs. It decouples them from the grid, which makes the whole service predictable and viable, even way off-grid.
This idea of high utilization is interesting. It brings us to the next layer because managing that sounds like a huge logistics challenge.
It is.
If you only see this as selling a refrigerated box, you're missing the real story.
You're missing the multi-billion-dollar point. The box is just the entry ticket. The real scalable business is built on all the invisible layers, the software, the data,
So you're treating the cold units like nodes in a network.
and an intelligent, distributed logistics network. That digital layer, that's your defensible moat. Hardware can be copied. This can't.
Okay, let's break down those digital functions. First, just managing the aggregation.
Function 1 is just that, aggregation and booking. You have to match the farmer supply with your cooling capacity, and you have to do it in real time. The solution has to be dead simple.
So not some complicated enterprise software.
God, no. It could be a simple app or even just a booking system built into something like Viber, which almost every farmer in Nepal already has on their phone.
It's amazing. The future of ag logistics might run on a simple messaging app. It proves you have to meet the user where they are.
You absolutely have to. The operator uses that simple tool to schedule everything and keep the unit full. That's what makes the economics work.
Okay, function 2. You said this was the most crucial part, market linkage.
This is where the operator stops being just a storage provider and becomes a supply chain partner.
How?
By collecting all that data quality, volume, location from across the network, they can become a centralized sales desk. They can go directly to big B2B buyers.
Supermarket chains, hotel groups.
Exactly, like a Baratani. The operator can bypass all the traditional middlemen. Instead of the buyer trying to deal with 100 different farmers,
They get one point of contact.
one point of contact with a powerful guarantee. We have 15 tons of grade A cauliflower, chilled within 2 hours of harvest, and fully traceable. That promise of consistency and volume changes the entire power dynamic.
Which leads to function 3, quality and trust.
Right. Traceability and quality assurance. Put a simple QR code on a crate when it enters the unit. Suddenly you have a verifiable history.
Where it was farmed, entry time, temperature log.
Everything. This data is priceless.
Yeah.
It lets you differentiate your product. You can sell traceable grains from Panchkal at a premium. It's a lesson straight from global supply chains.
And finally, the bridge to finance, fintech. You called this the ultimate unlock. Explain how the digital collateral works.
Okay, so if a farmer is consistently using the service, the data trailed their production history, their liability, that becomes a verifiable credit score. But here's the real innovation. The produce itself, while it's in storage, can act as digital collateral.
But how? It's perishable. How do you securitize a tomato?
The digital data is the audit trail. You have verifiable location, a traceable history, a continuous temperature log. It proves the asset exists and what its quality is. That transparent third-party data transforms a perishable good into a liquid financial instrument that a bank can actually trust.
And that solves the chronic lack of credit for rural farmers.
It bridges the entire gap between Agrotech and FinSec. It could inject a huge amount of liquidity into the whole system.
So if the operator controls all this data, is there a risk they just become a new, more powerful middleman?
That's a really important question. It all comes down to transparency and regulation. The key is that the operator is selling a transparent service. Their incentive is to maximize the use of the unit, not their own profit margin on the trade itself.
Okay.
The framework has to ensure the farmer keeps ownership of their produce right up until the point of sale. That's where regulators need to step in.
Which brings us to the strategic outlook. What does this mean for investors, for policy? What are the possible futures for this sector?
I think you can see two very clear paths. The bull scenario is where 2 or 3 really well-capitalized CKS operators emerge,
And what are they focused on?
obsessively focused on operational excellence. They master the tech platform, but they source their hardware from somewhere else, maybe India. They partner deeply with local cooperatives to handle that first-mile aggregation.
And what's the one big policy change needed for that to happen?
It's all about the central bank, the Maharashtra Bank. They have to issue clear, functional guidelines for digital warehouse receipts.
To make the digital collateral legally binding.
Yes. Right now, it's all paper-based, which is useless for modern lending. A digital receipt makes the stored produce legally recognizable as collateral in real time. That one regulatory change unlocks that whole virtuous credit cycle we talked about.
Okay, and the opposite of that, the bear scenario, the hardware trap.
This is what happens if the government gets lured by subsidies focused only on buying assets. You get a flood of cheap, low-quality cold storage units sold directly to individual farmers.
Oh, with no service layer on top?
Exactly. No market linkage, no utilization strategy. The units get used for a few weeks, the power costs are too high, they break down, and they're abandoned. It gives the entire agrotech sector a bad name, and investor money just evaporates.
So the technology is there, the economics work. What's the one thing that separates the winners from the losers?
The hard truth is that agrotech is about agriculture. It's about immense operational complexity, not just cool tech. The winner here won't be the company with the slickest app.
Or the best compressor?
No, it'll be the one that masters first-mile aggregation, the human element.
Paint a picture of what that human problem looks like.
It's about convincing a farmer who's been doing things the same way for 50 years, who trusts his old middleman, that this app on his phone is going to protect his family's income better. It's about building real human relationships. The technology is just a tool. In rural Nepal, trust is the ultimate platform.
So to summarize the critical takeaways for you, listener, the CCaaS model works because it aligns costs directly with a farmer's cash flow. It treats produce like a financial instrument, and it uses data to unlock brand new financial services, especially credit.
And we have to just hammer this home. Success depends on mastering that first-mile human problem. This isn't a temperature control problem. It's a logistics and a relationship management problem.
Okay, here's a final thought for you to chew on. If the tech is viable and the service model is proven, then the biggest lever left for investment growth is regulatory. How quickly can the financial system, specifically the legal recognition of digital collateral, catch up to the technology that's already in the field? And what kind of opportunity does that lag create for an investor who gets in position for the moment that legal switch is finally flipped?